Hi Brad, please accept this as my vlog for the assignment. So for this assignment I had to work really hard not to let my emotions get in the way and skew my perspective. I talked to my parents and other students and teachers and tried my best to make sure I was looking at this objectively and not letting my emotions dictate my opinion. Through it all though, it all came back to the same thing, that without rewards for students there would be no goals or anything to work toward. So Alfie Cohen states in the article that the St. Basil School is using as its main research supporter that doing away with all certificates and ceremonies honoring academic and athletic achievement, saying awards eventually lose their luster to students who get them often, while hurting the self-esteem and pride of those who don't get a certificate. He claims that three things happen: that the students are become less excited about the learning itself, they tend to become less likely to think deeply, and that the kids will pick the easiest task given the choice. So I will just say that I totally disagree. I read a little bit Alfie Cohen, and I feel like he's one of those kids that might have not been rewarded when he was a student, so he's taking it personally, and now he's, putting it onto, the interwebs as his opinion. And I shouldn't say that his opinion is wrong. I just don't agree with it personally. So, it is true, though, that after a certain point of rewarding a student, that they may become disinterested. But I also know that hardly ever in my academic career has a teacher ever given an award for everything, for every single good thing that a student does. So they are specific and they are goal-oriented, and they're normally for a test or something that is not a common, practice. It's not like the teacher comes in and the student shows up and ties their shoes and they get a sticker. There's a certain point that every teacher understands that they're going to, implement this reward system. So I decided to talk to my mom, and she said that as a teacher, that, in her experience, the key to eliminating this over-rewarding and the point where, like, oh, well, if I do that, then you'll give me a sticker, you have to keep them guessing. So that when, they take a test, they might not get a sticker, but then the next time if they get the top mark, of course they're going to get a sticker. Something like that. In the process, this makes sure that the work still gets done, that they still cover the material, and they still, are motivated without being, always needing to have that reward. So the second point he makes is also interesting, claiming that they tend to become less likely to think deeply. Now this one gets me a little, because if they had no reward, they would more likely see no purpose in thinking at all. And that's just my opinion, because when you go, like when I go to a classroom and, there's no test or there's no, grade or anything like that, like Cohen claims that grades are even in themselves a reward, that, when I'm there, I'm like, okay, well, I want to think about this, and I want to make sure I have notes, and I want to make sure that I'm paying attention, because then I will get the grade that I need to get to the next step. So for me, him saying that just leads to more thoughts about, I would not think at all. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But, so now I understand that this might be part of his point, that we should be teaching our kids to think without the reward as the carrot on the stick, but as humans we inherently crave encouragement and recognition, so we might as well use this as a tool that will get our kids to become more interested, even if just for the time being it's just a reward, and as they become more interested in the subject matter, then they might intrinsically become more motivated to do the work themselves. Also, once again, keeping them guessing, and as they become more interested in reading or math or whatever the subject may be, then they receive the rewards that they earned and are going to be properly given. Third, he says they will pick the easiest task. Now this one I don't completely understand, but I don't think that if you ask any adult if they would rather pick up a 10-pound brick or a box of cereal for something, the choice would be hard. So I personally don't agree with that, because it is once again just human nature to take the easier route unless the harder route offers a greater reward. So I was able to find some pretty interesting research about this topic, and a lot of it was coming from the perspective of people who thought we should do away with rewards. My question to them is, how did you become a psychologist or a doctor without having goals and rewards to work toward? I would bet that I could ask any of them, and not one would say that at some point they didn't receive a sticker or a stamp or just a pat on the back that didn't make them feel proud or happy and encourage them to keep working. So I had to dig a little bit, but I eventually found some information that is in support of my argument. The one that I found had the point that if no apparent reward situation, it can be seen as producing a high level of anxiety as a result of minimal feedback about their performance. So this is saying that in a situation where there is no apparent reward for a student who may be struggling or a student who is prone to deviant behavior, without that goal or reward, they may develop anxiety and become more nervous that they did not do it properly than if they were simply told that they did not do a good job or that they did a good job. The study mainly focused on students with deviant behavior, and for the most part, they found that the subjects who did not typically display deviant behavior do not need the same level of reward as deviant students, but they still need a little bit of feedback, and more likely positive feedback, in order to maintain the same level of success they are currently attaining. And the deviant students need the rewards in order to attempt that level of success at all. The second study that I found was mainly about the views of the teacher, and that the teacher has a difficult job of motivating his or her students and keeping them motivated. It is discussed that the effect that intrinsic motivation has on the students from the teacher's perspective, and asked of the teachers how often and what type of motivation they used. The article discussed a lady named Judy Cameron who is opposed to Alfie Cohn, and she says that her findings were that extrinsic motivation has few, if any, detrimental effects, that a student, once again, would rather have the teacher give them something to work toward, and maybe there's a chance that they might not achieve it, but they will still be willing to work toward it and be willing to try. Of course, there are those that will argue that there is one in every class that won't buy in, but sometimes those students come from home lives that don't encourage success or have not given their child the tools that they need to succeed. So it doesn't really matter whether the teacher sets up a reward system or not, they are going to be a tough nut to crack. The main point of this study was that the teachers, for the most part, agreed that in order to motivate the children, there had to be something in it to be achieved, or it just wasn't going to happen. Overall, I think that I'm a little biased, because all through my academic career, I have been in the top 5 students in my classes, always striving to succeed and having parents who pushed me and encouraged me. So the rewards that came along with that were more of a bonus, but they were always a source of pride, and they always motivated to keep me going. In the same breath, I didn't ever receive every reward every year, nor did I ever receive rewards in volleyball, hockey, or numerous other sports that I participated in throughout my life. I just truly believe that those rewards were something that I worked toward, and that giving my best effort and making sure I was always where I needed to be was a priority, and having good sportsmanship. So for me, it paid off in grade 12 when I received the coach's award for my high school girls. I did not win all the ribbons at the track meets. I do not win all of the ribbons at cross-country running. I do not win all of the awards at volleyball. I mostly sat on the bench. But I was at every practice. I help with teardown. I help with pretty much whatever the coaches need, because I recognize my weaknesses and I make up for them by being a good person. My coaches, however, saw that and they recognized me for it. I can honestly say that was one of the proudest moments of my life, and without having that reward to work with, having that award to work toward, and without having the drive to be the better person that I can be and work towards the greater betterment of myself, I might not see the results that I still strive toward every day. Sometimes there has to be a winner and a loser, and a child has to understand that just because they lose at one thing does not mean that they're going to lose at everything. Thank you, Brad. I'll see you on Monday.